And good tidings, everybody, and welcome back to Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. This is the August edition. I'm your host, Minsk, recovering from the con flu here, so if I sound a little weird in this intro and in a couple of the reviews, that is the explanation. So have fun trying to spot which ones are in the immediate aftermath of me recovering from my... yeah, there you go, from that. Right, so this month we have quite a humongous episode because, a bunch of albums with birds on the cover released this month. So, we're, super loaded here. Usually at the start of an episode, I've got that little preamble discussion about something. Usually, if I've been to a concert, it's a concert report. But otherwise, some other, nice bantering to go at the start. But because this month is so huge on the album content itself, and, because of the whole Gamescom shindig that has also been occupying my time quite a bit, I'm gonna mulligan this month's intro and just keep it this short, I'm allowed a mulligan like that once in a while, I guess, once a year or something, maybe, I don't know, we'll see, but yeah, I'm gonna do it this time. It's not like you guys, again, are gonna be starved for content otherwise, but instead, I guess I'll throw the mic over to you, dear viewer, all of you, I would love to hear, especially now, I suppose, August, we're ending summer, which has been a busy time for, events and stuff for everyone, I suppose, I don't know, unless I'm talking to my southern hemisphere compatriots, in which case you've been weathering through winter, but maybe something fun's been going on down there as well. So I'll toss it over to you to, why don't you tell in the comments about anything related to this show that's been going on with you over the summer. If you have spotted any cool birds, to think about the bird watching side of things, I'd love to hear about that, about any interesting bird sightings or, bird call hearings, that you might have had over this season. Or, of course, for the metal music side, if you've been to any cool concerts, which are those things that I'm usually featuring on these episode openings, I would also love to hear about that as well. What have been the good festivals or concerts or general anything that's been going on right now that you've been to, and what were the highlights there? So yeah, that's my open invitation for you guys to let me know about what's been going on. But otherwise, yeah, I won't belabor this any further as mentioned, so let's jump into the first of August's albums. Please enjoy. Alright, we'll kick this month off with Blackbriar and their third album, 1,000 Little Deaths. This is a symphonic metal band from the Netherlands, which made me go, huh? Because I had to double check that both Within Temptation and Delane are also Dutch. So, it's just a thing there to do this kind of music. Sure, why not? But, first of all, good little pick of birds here, something we don't see as much. I think vultures are pretty metal, so I feel like you'd expect to see more of them, but here we are. But yes, a bunch of little vultures, 1,000 little vultures you might even say, I guess, here in the treetops of this big old tree, skulking up there. I'll get into it in a second, but I think this image is a little bit ambiguous of what exactly is going on here, but, they're really well rendered. I do like the, because I like overall this, ink work image here, black and white, it's pretty neat. But I do like the how the birds are rendered. They look suitably menacing. I like how they're kind of all over the place. And, of course, there's a death motif going on here, so, vultures, carry-on birds, very much associated with that. So, all together, very good choices, very well done. And the image, indeed, I really, I love the, it's full of neat little detail. Someone really loved inking this image, but all the, little, the shading on that tree trunk by like focusing on where there's more of the like black color versus the white and just the gnarls on the tree in general, and the juxtaposition of the huge canopy of the tree being that flat black against the tree branches, and the bottom of the screen, which is the bottom of the image, which is more white colored. Some great stuff going on here. It's lovingly rendered. It's a really cool image. Again, like this lady on a swing. Oh yeah, also the red hair, of course. Always do appreciate like a little spot of color in a mainly monochrome, or in this case, straight up black and white image. Excuse me. The concept of the image is interesting, and it's like really ambiguous, exactly like what everything represents, but I think in a good way, because it like really leaves you thinking, like, okay, interesting. I guess the vultures, are they praying for the lady here? That's pray with an E, or the other dead, because we are in a cemetery, But if we're being super sticklers here, carrion birds, they're not gonna eat like long dead corpses, and also they can't really dig underground to get to the bodies. So it's gotta be this lady. But she's having like a very casual just day here, having a nice swing on this tree branch here in the middle of a cemetery, so that's kind of odd, like has she really come here to die, and is she oblivious to the birds around her, or is she just like minding her own business? Like, yeah, there's the album title promises 1,000 little deaths, but there only really just seems to be the one here, being set up, unless the birds are also gonna die. Yeah. It's but I think it's like, because the motifs of like the looming presence of death, I think, because everything's looming around this lady, the birds in the trees and the tombstones around her. So that concept comes through very well, and I think that makes this a pretty damn good album cover. Musically, I went into it enjoying it pretty well, but came out of the end like, nothing really stood out, unfortunately. It's not my favorite genre. It's this Within Temptation style symphonic metal, and this one didn't really manage to convince me otherwise. So yeah, the first song's called Bluebeard's Chamber, which I'm vaguely aware is like some kind of spooky fairy tale about a guy who like invites women to his house and then kills them. Something like that. So suitably spooky, like old-timey, like the actual fairy tale to frighten children with. And I thought the vibes were managed correctly. Like, it's got the like little like bell chimes to like give a fairy tale quality, but everything's like a little bit discordant. So it's got the spooky vibes, and then it comes exploding in a nice big way once the like big symphonic section come through. The playing here is competent all throughout. There's some nice, kind of medium pace kind of metal music being played here with some nice orchestral accompaniment, usually by violins or pianos or like bells, chimes and stuff like that, setting it all up with some, lovely, female vocals here, just beautiful, I feel like Blackbriar's singer goes a little bit higher in pitch than, again, contemporaries Within Temptation or Delane or Nightwish, I guess. Or at least I'd say, like, I feel like she has a little bit less range. Like, her range seems to be much more just in the higher register. So it ends up having, like, I think that also maybe adds to kind of the fairy tale-ness, because it sounds like a little bit like, even more lighthearted in some sense. But the music also has like this dark undercurrent going on throughout it. So I think there's stuff here to like, and maybe someone who's more into the genre can appreciate this more, but for all this, praise I'm heaping it, like, I don't know, by the end of the 10 songs on it, nothing had like really gripped me, with the exception, I guess, of that first song. Yeah. Like, so I'm not probably gonna be listening to this afterwards. Oh, just quick note also, like, as I've noted in the past, like, a lot of these, like, big symphonic metal band seem to transition into being like really like modern metal, almost like metalcore-ish kind of sounds, you know. And this band, I don't think is entirely there yet, but there's some influences of that as well. There's some segments with some like really like down-tuned guitars, like jamming there. But it's still, I'd say it's still like a little bit one foot firmly in the more like traditional symphonic metal camp. So for whatever that's worth, I guess, you know, that's that for whether that affects your listening choice or not, thought I'd bring that up as well. But yeah, I'm gonna be moving on from this album, yeah. Next up, a slightly older album, well, by 5 years, that's gotten re-released now, so is my excuse to take a look at it here. This is the classic heavy metal band Cirith Ungol with their 5th album, Forever Black. A gap of 30 years almost between albums here. This band was defunct from the 90s up to the mid-10s, then came back for some reason. I'm not entirely clear on that, but yeah, this was their first release after coming back from such a long time off. Yes, Cirith Ungol is the pass in The Lord of the Rings that Gollum leads Frodo and Sam through to get to Mordor. And yes, I am aware, all the Tolkien fans out there, that Mr. Tolkien pronounces it Cirith Ungol, but the band calls their band Cirith Ungol, so it's appropriate here. You do not need to send me an angry message about this matter. Okay, cool. Right, yes, well, the image. It's, bird is pretty easy to find there, that big silhouette of that dark raven flying behind this classic-looking fantasy dude here. You know, it's not a crazy application of a bird here, but, like, it's alright, you know? It's a companion for this guy. It looks nice. Overall, I mean, I really like this image. This is an image by Michael Whelan for the Elric books, which I looked this up, like Cirith Ungol uses various Elric arts from Mr. Whelan for all of their album covers, so this is not a Lord of the Rings image then, which makes sense because I was scratching my head who this guy could be from Lord of the Rings if that were the case. Although I was going to say that there's no Dark Elves in Lord of the Rings, so it wouldn't make sense to have this like Dark Elf looking guy here. But I did Google really quickly before recording today that there was in the Silmarillion, there was the Elven Smith Eo who had the extra name, the Dark Elf, in the title. So yeah, I guess this could have technically been him. But I don't know, it's more likely that this is in fact Eldric of Melniboné himself posing here, which I think, you know, is what the music's also about, because his sword is called Stormbringer, and that's the name of the song on this album as well. As an aside, I really it's a bit of a gap in my geeky culture upbringing. I've never read any of the Elric books, so I'm a little bit embarrassed. I really should read up on them because they've been hugely influential for like tabletop RPGs and like a bunch of like Japanese media. Also, like Elric books were pretty popular in Japan. Like it's very influential, and it's a bit of an embarrassment that I haven't gotten around to reading any of them. But yeah. So, but yes, of course. Again, so classic fantasy and a classic image by Mr. Whelan. You know, I definitely do love this like 80s and 90s Dungeons and Dragons type of painting look. So I definitely do enjoy the soft colors and the just kind of like shameless badass kind of character design here. Like just make this like really stylized, cool looking fantasy warrior dude here with that cool slouch with his sword dangling. You know, it's cheap but fun thrills that I really enjoy. I do have to say, I think there's a very silly rendering of his eyes in this image that like makes him look really cross-eyed with those red dots. That kind of takes a little bit of the atmosphere from here. I've tried to look up, like, I could swear I found like one image where the eyes were like a little bit less like sharp and were a little bit like straighter, so this has to be some kind of like contrast thing, I think, maybe? But, like, yeah, no, odd choice. Maybe this is supposed to, like, maybe this is, I don't know, I said I haven't read Elric, maybe he does have a lazy eye. Maybe I'm the asshole for, like, you know, calling, you know, making fun of a person with, you know, a lazy eye here, I'll admit that, but strange choice anyway, I'd say, out of left field to have this badass fantasy guy with that kind of design. I mean, certainly not what I expected. Now, yeah, so album cover's cool. Musically, yeah, so I mean, this band goes back all the way to the early 70s, so you can expect that it's going to be, unless the band has gone through some crazy evolution over its years, spoiler, it hasn't, you know, you can expect some classic rocking here, and that's what it is, and I had a really good time with this album. The vocals were surprisingly harsh for this kind of old-timey, like, galloping heavy metal. They weren't harsh vocals, like, it wasn't like that, but like it was a little bit more like kind of intense shouting vocals that I maybe wasn't expecting them to go that hard for this kind of music, so it kind of adds a little bit of a unique flavor to it. And yeah, the music's nice. It's that rollicking, galloping, fantasy-tinged heavy metal that's not super complicated but pleasant to listen to. The absolute standout is the third song on this album, The Frostmourne Stream, which definitely like has some really groovy riffs, kind of bringing into mind that 70s, especially like the more psychedelic dabblings of Black Sabbath or something. It's got those in it, and it's got crazy tempo changes. It's the most proggy song on the album, and it's a really cool showing to listen to that one. The sixth song, Fractus Promissum, is similarly like just has like the grooviest riffs available. So those two are definitely absolutely standout songs, and I definitely recommend listening to those at least. I really, really like those. The rest of the album, it's a little bit more of like it rolls nicely, but doesn't really stand out hugely. It's about what you expect from this genre. There's some slower songs which also have like a cool atmosphere to them, and overall nothing's like really particularly badly done here, but yeah, it's all just like a more even keel, pleasant classic fantasy metal jamming for the rest of the parts. So would I recommend the entire album? Probably. If this is in your wheelhouse, I think this is a really good example of that kind of old school metal. So even though this is one of their newer works from 2020, but still, I think this one's a real good one to give her a spin. If this isn't exactly your jam, it's still those couple two songs I named I would recommend checking out, because I think they're quite sterling. Otherwise, I don't know, it's alright classic rock. Yeah, I'll listen to those couple songs at least a few more times, but rest of this album, not a hundo, sure. I've snuck another Dungeon Synth album into this month's edition of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. And this one, not even particularly having a super spooky metal vibe to its Dungeon Synth, this one straight up has comfy synth and fantasy synth as tags on Bandcamp, telling you that it's just gonna be kind of good vibes music. But the lineage is still there, so I'm gonna talk about this in between all the metal we're talking about. If you guys need a refresher, please look up the June 2025 episode of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. That's the first time I had a Dungeon Synth album on here, where I kind of gave the basics on what this genre is and why it is appropriate to talk about it on a metal show. But yes, Friarbird is not an Australian project, appears to be from Washington, D.C., but this is an Australian bird featured here on the cover. You know, of course, this cover jumped out to me because, come on, it's so bird-themed now. You know, the name, the album name, the picture here, everything. So I, you know, also kind of explaining why we're talking about it. And it's a lovely picture. This is, in fact, an Australian bird. I learned about it for the first time now, Googling Friarbird in conjunction with this album. Yes, they are a fairly common bird that live in, I think, all over Australia, various different Friarbirds, and they all have that strange little nubbin on the top of their beak, kind of a little growth as part of their beak. I couldn't find out what the evolutionary purpose of that part is. I don't know. If I had to make a crazy guess, attracting a mate for some reason, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Yes, this image itself is also a classical image. It is by a late 1700s seafarer who visited I believe the Sydney region of Australia. A guy whose name I'm hoping is pronounced George Rapere, because if that's not how it's pronounced, he has a very unfortunate last name. But he was there at the end of the 1700s in Australia. He was a sailor, basically, but he also did a bunch of these ornithological sketches. Yeah, lovely little, these old-timey animal pictures. So you can look up a bunch of images from him of similar bird pictures of various Australian avian life. Yeah, so in that sense, it fits the vibes of this album perfectly. It is, in fact, a comfy image, and I enjoy the trivia, and it's just a lovely picture, It's also an interesting album cover. You can see the fascinating formatting of the, band title and the image, and the producer of the album, Fiat Productions logo there on the left. You can tell that this is meant to be bent into what's called a J card, which is the card that comes inside a 8-track cassette. So this is not really intended to be a CD album image. And indeed, if I check this correctly, I do believe Fiat is only making a cassette out of this. It's kind of a Dungeon Synth thing to only have cassette releases. Their CD releases, I'm sure there's probably vinyl releases sometimes, but it's actually kind of part of the culture to mainly focus on cassettes. So that's why the image has been, rendered in this fashion. I think it's kind of charming. Musically, yes, also charming is absolutely the word of the day here, but it's kind of a problem with Dungeon Synth because it's so ambient, kind of just feeling vibes that it kind of doesn't leave a super huge lasting impression on me. So, or usually it doesn't, it's just kind of nice to listen for a bit and then be like, alright, and this I thought was kind of no different. But it definitely, it's very kind of peaceful and dreamlike, and pastoral is the energy with some very soft bells and guessing a harp or something, or maybe some kind of xylophone type thing, just providing some really really easy pastoral energy, because this is supposed to kind of be the soundtrack for, I guess, a bunch of birds in Australia. And I know Australia is memed as a big old hell world where everything is out to kill you, but I'm pretty sure there's also just really nice comfy woodlands and fields where you can imagine this kind of pasteliness and birds frolicking. And this is the kind of easy listening music that really matches that energy. Yeah, good stuff for that. And I don't know, if you're having a very kind of, pastoral energy adventure in a tabletop RPG, this is probably really good music for that. Maybe something like the early parts of Wardens of Wildwood in Pathfinder RPG. I could see myself maybe chucking this music in there somewhere. But I don't think I'll be listening to this particularly regularly. Nothing popped out as oh my god, this is gets me in the feels. Just well, that was pleasant. So maybe you'll also find it to be the same way. Alright, here's another throwback to an older album that we are covering due to a re-release. This is Green Lung and their debut album from 2019, Woodland Rites. Green Lung's a really groovy band, actually. I have their second album, Black Harvest. I don't remember when I happened to stumble upon that one, but I was alright, awesome. Kind of spooky, occult, ritual-themed, stonery, doom, occult rock music. Very sick. Very, very fun. So, and as you can see from this image, like, they were really batting for that with their first album as well. So, you know, never listened to this first effort. Very delighted to have a listen to this as well, because, yeah, that second one is a really top-notch album. Right, so, the bird, this is one of these big old woodland images where I'm always doing a bit of a Where's Waldo hunt for, is there a bird in there? And there is one bird, surprisingly only a couple, actually, not very many. But there is, well, there's one really prominent owl there at the top left, which is the first one I spotted. If you look really carefully, there's one more owl to the left of it. And also on the far right, top right there, next to that demon drummer guy, there's also an owl kind of blending into the woods there. There's also a figure at the bottom left, kind of a beaked figure, but that one is a little hard to say is avian, really, so that one I wouldn't count. But yeah, top row of birds up there in top of the image. That absolutely qualifies this album cover to be featured on the show. And, you know, very cute. Love to see some owls. They have occult tinges to them, so do appreciate them showing up here. And yeah, overall, like, this is just a fantastic album cover. It nails exactly the energy that we're going for here with this, like, you know, satanic kind of you know, well, there's a goat-headed guy, but there's no, otherwise I don't see really any pentagrams or anything. So it really is just, you know, classic esoteric ritual, which certainly has some kind of, you know, mayhaps a little bit darker vibes to it. Certainly the, like, sound clips that this album features reference devil worshipping, you know, the, like, little stock recording sounds that this album uses, but yeah, creepy ritual going on in the woods, but it's drawn in this, like, kind of silly, playful, kind of goofy way, like, you know, to, like, juxtapose with, like, the dark ritual that's going on here. And just, like, a masterfully done, like, kind of woodcut-looking work here. It's just really cool. Oh, and the work of colors as well, you know. And there's not a lot of colors, obviously, here, but, like, the border having that, like, light green for the forest, and then, like, that kind of, you know, stark red for the band logo in the dead middle. Yeah, it just really, it's really evocative, and it's, like, well done, and it's got this nice old-timiness that just absolutely sells you on the album concept. It's a really good album cover. And I like the music quite a bit, too, yeah. It opened up a little bit more, I don't know, because I can't help but compare this to Black Harvest, their second album, since that's the one I've listened to a couple times. But yeah, like the first song, Initiation, kind of goes for a different tack, because that one went really heavy on the, like, this is a kind of creepy harvest ritual, Wicker Man type thing going on. That second album opening with, like, you know, like the kind of church organs, like, kicking in, building up to the spookiness. This one is a little bit more somber with, like, sounds of the woods and then, like, an easy, like, acoustic guitar opening, so it gives a much more folksy, down-to-earth vibe. But that intro already fits some epic rocking into it. Like, yes, this is definitely, like, some kind of stonery doom metal music that, like, definitely brings to mind the, like, Master of Reality and a Volume 4 era Black Sabbath, for sure. But, like, there's some kind of new wave-ish, like, epic rocking kind of guitar soloing on occasion. A little bit more at the start, I feel like, and then the second half of the album, like, eases up and goes a little bit more for the more classic occult rock. But, like, there's some real, like, kind of new wavy kind of epic guitar soloing in there a little bit. So it's it's not super fast-paced music. Again, doom is the name of the day, so it's, like, kind of slow-going, easy listening in that sense, but it's got some big, huge, epic fills, along with some, like, really playful kind of, you know, keyboard-filled, spooky kind of, but also, like, kind of just like a jamming, like, good time stonery jamming guitar work here. It's interesting, yeah. And the vocalist is definitely, like, is absolutely, you know, Tom Templar. You know, he's absolutely going for an Ozzy Osbourne impression there. Like, the same kind of, like, lyrical stylings of Mr. Osbourne, you know, from the early Black Sabbath stuff. Well, he doesn't exactly sound like the guy, but, like, you can tell, like, that's the kind of, like, energy he's going for. In fact, sometimes he comes off when he tries to sound a little bit more spooky. He sounds more like Billy Corrigan of if I had to compare it to something, you know, of Smashing Pumpkins fame. But it's really cool. It's really cool overall, this album. I do think it's a little bit like blends in, because like I struggle to like tell what's the like highlight songs. The opening was really good. The fifth song, Templar Dawn, is probably the spookiest of them after like epic rocking. That like actually goes for the proper like spooky horror tingy music. So that's interesting. The second to last song, May Queen, was like this really easy listening, almost like kind of lounge music-y at times. So yeah, but overall, like, yeah, I don't know, like nothing like super jumps out as like amazing, but the overall playing here is quite high level and like quite evocative. So I think after a couple listens, like I think I would be able to grab some favorites, and yeah, I don't know, it's just really cool. It's really nice, cool. I love this energy, and I think it's done very well here. So I can really strongly recommend this. And next up, we'll be listening to Kayo and their 11th album, Every Rock, Every Half-Truth Under Reason. A band that I haven't heard of before this, but like they've been active for like I guess 30 years, I guess was already now. And yeah, lots of albums, and seems to be fairly well known in the kinda proggy, artsy-fartsy metal scene or something. So let's take a look/listen at this. We'll start with the bird in the image. It's pretty easy to tell, but I have to say, this image is kind of throwing me off, because this might or might not be a case of a weird bird-like mythological creature, in which case I'm, kind of stretching a little, like, is it okay to include this on the show, but it's avian enough in that case that I'd allow it. Or it could just be a bird. Like, I'm having trouble telling, and I think that kind of tells you that this is a nicely painted, like, it's the technique is well done, it's evocative, but something about the composition like confused me for a really long time. So this maybe isn't as good an image as you might think. So, like, I'm struggling to tell if there are 2 or 3 creatures here, and well, I originally struggled with like what connected to what, because there seems to be the hindquarters of some kind of like, I don't know, a goat or a goat or a deer or something, and there's a bird creature, and then there's a human head. And the first time I looked at this image, it kind of looked like the bird, the human head connected to the goat thing, and the bird was kind of straddling the back there. But it also did look like maybe the goat is connected to the bird, like it's like some kind of bird-goat hippogriffin thing. But after a few more stares at it, I finally realized that there's definitely a human there. They're sitting in kind of a lotus position there. You can see like their legs are folded and the hands are in there. So yes, the goat thing is not connected to that human head that's dangling there. So that then makes it even likelier then that perhaps then the bird is connected to the goat back, in which case it's not a real bird. But again, I'm struggling to tell a little bit. Like, it is interesting, the image, and I like. I'm a sucker for like when it's like a monochrome image and then there's like one little speck of light, or otherwise like monochrome and like color, like, being contrasted, and the fact that there's this one colorful tail feather thing. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a feather there, so that also implies that maybe the bird is related to the ungulate there. Unless that's a flower, like a leaf. I don't know. But yeah, I guess the composition I'm struggling to understand a little bit. So in that sense, maybe this image isn't as good as like initially you'd be like, oh, that's an interesting image. Yeah, I don't know. Now musically, yes, the Bandcamp profile describes them as an undefinable band, and the Wikipedia page made an effort to like categorize them. It certainly seems to be avant-garde metal is used as a descriptor, and there's people who are clearly really hyped for this and find its interesting forms, like, you know, delightful, and like the kind of mind-boggling 23-minute long song, automatic writing, gets people like their favorite track notes on Bandcamp, and on YouTube there were comments on how evocative it is. So I really hate to come out on this side, but what the hell is this music that I just listened to? This is... wow, okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna be listening to this album again. It did not really interest me. And, like, you know, we've listened to a Dungeon Synth album on this episode as well, so it's not like I'm not open to this real crazy swing with the genre for sure, but this one just ain't really doing it for me. Like, we've talked about one avant-garde metal band before, like Catafalque, and in that case, like, yeah, I gelled with it. It definitely was like a metal album that indulged in some really crazy choices at times with instruments and composition, but it definitely was still like really metal. This one, yeah, like post-rock is the closest thing that comes to mind with this one, and but before we even get to that, like before there's even post-rock, the first song is this 10-minute long kind of ambient pipe organ thing with some kind of haunting lyrics. Like, yeah, it's an alright album intro, and I guess, but then like it really does go on for 10 minutes. Like, wow, okay. The second song is where the post-rock comes in, I'd say. Like, now there's some kind of ethereal guitar plucking in there, and you know, kind of haunting, you know, keyboard work there, mixing together. It's probably the best song on the album, I think. I enjoyed the second song, Oracle by Severed Head. You know, it's all right, yeah. But then we return to like just the pipe organ madness again. The third song, now with like these like painful shrieking spoken word kind of singing. Like, okay, now the vibe, and also I should say that the pipe organ intro was really kind of like unsettling. You know, like making you like ugh, a little skin crawling. The same thing goes on with that third song, but now with just like the pained shriek singing. Like, alright, yeah, well, that's the emotion we're going for. And then there's that fourth song, Automatic Riding, which again, just like this like really slow kind of organ heavy, and also sometimes kind of violin, some kind of string instrument there heavy, just unsettling music, like ooh. And like now the vocals are again distant and kind of bizarre, and you know, I was like, alright, well, yeah, alright, the band says that they keep changing their style constantly, and like, it did say avant-garde, so I guess with this one we've landed on, you know, these kind of unsettling atmospheric vibes. And yeah, I'm like, well, maybe, you know, by the time we're done with this fourth song, maybe they'll like jam out to close off this album or something. Like, you know, if they're gonna be crazy, then they'll really mix it up. But no, this fourth song is 23 minutes long, and by the time it's done, there's only 8 minutes left on the whole album with just one song. Now that song's another kind of post-rocky, like now again jamming a little bit, but like at that point I was just like, yeah. It's just not my scene, I guess. Like, this isn't exactly, 'cause again, like, I could see this kind of music like tickling my fancy, but like, you know, the Dungeon Synth we listened to, Friarbird, like had like nice pastoral easy vibes, while this one seems to be music made to make you feel uncomfortable. And sure, let's be clear that art is supposed to channel all kinds of emotions, so an hour's worth of uncomfortableness is a valid artistic expression. I don't want to take that away. But, like, I don't find that very appealing to listen to, basically. Yeah, I really do hate to come off like this, you know, with a interesting swing like this, but I'm just kind of, like, baffled. If this band really does change its style, they must have had, like, some more metally stuff going on in the past, and then this one just was like this wild swing in this direction. Because this band has a profile on Metal Archives, and that like shocks me, because they kinda... They have a rather... I don't know, old-fashioned, conservative line on like what kind of metal music can be there, like more modern and, you know, new metal, alt metal, metalcore-ish music isn't really featured on the Metal Archives. So this one feels even crazier than that, so it's kind of wild that this one still has a profile on Metal Archives, so it has to be on the virtue of some of their older albums, I can only assume. Yeah, so I don't know what to say here to end. Like, it might interest you if you need these weird vibes, but I'm gonna have to be Mr. Anti-Art here, I guess, a bit. Like, this does not click with me. So, yeah. Gonna have to take another effort with this band with something else then in the future, I guess, if I wanna try to listen. It's not gonna be this one, not this album. Yeah. Alright, we're dipping into something not as metal again, but rather metal adjacent, so I think this will still be to your listening pleasure, probably more than the Dungeon City thing we'll listen to. This is Membrane, the crust punk band, with their debut album, self-titled. Yeah, this already came out, I think in like January already actually, but the record company Fiat Productions released a vinyl version in August, so that's why we are listening to this now. You know, it came up on my radar at this point, so there you go. The bird is, you know, easy enough to find here. There's a big old kind of raptor here at the bottom right, some kind of hawk or eagle. I did kind of think it might be a raven or crow because of the, you know, grayscale coloring and it being rather darkly colored. But the more I look at its profile, I think it's a bigger bird of prey than one of those. There's also a flock of something, you know, some fun birds there at the top right, but it's hard to tell what those are. Yeah, I think it's interesting. This is doing what I feel like has come up a couple times now on album covers, where the bird is an observer to what's going on in the rest of the image, because this raptor here at the bottom at least is just sitting there and watching the bigger picture unfold. That's interesting, because that's the energy I've gotten a lot of times now, where there's just a bird sitting around there as a witness to what's going on. So, yeah. I kind of like the overall picture, how much there's just a bunch of stuff going on here. But there's, you know, there's whatever this dispute is between these two people, obviously. Then there's this pack of wolves, you know, howling there. The birds, as mentioned. And there are the aurorae blazing in the sky. So it's like a lot is going on in this image. It's rather busy, but I don't think to its detriment. Like, it's got a nice balance ultimately on elements. And yeah, for a, you know, monochrome grayscale image, I think the shading has been done very well. It's like, you know, readability is really good on this picture. So pretty happy with it altogether. And musically, yeah, crust punk. I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of it, but I have a couple albums that I think are pretty neat. This one reminds me of them, but I'm not quite as infatuated with this one. But it's got the same kind of vibes, some pretty intense, you know, punk rock music, you know, like pretty angry. Lyrical themes, as far as I can tell from comments, like, somewhat... either the entire band or someone in the band is trans, or at least they're like very much keyed into trans rights, because like this seems to be about the experience. That's a lot of crust punk is, like it's about the experience of the marginalized, and particularly the trans community, you know, in current society, and how shitty it can get. So like that's what's coming through in the lyrics here for sure. And the anger and the fury is palpable. Like, it's some pretty intense rocking here that I think conveys the message pretty well. But on terms of like catchiness, yeah, you know, I don't think it is quite that. I'm not particularly like infatuated with it. The most interesting, I forget which one, it was about halfway. There's like a song which has a bit of a like slowdown, which has some almost kind of Tool style, kind of more alt rock kind of alt metal kind of playing there. But and there's other times, yeah, like when they really surrender to like the like really like bass heavy like slower playing, like it kind of grips me in those parts. But the more like faster paced, like slightly more hardcore punk leaning, like jamming is not super gripping to me. But yeah, I think it's an alright album in this space. I dig it. Oh yeah, and the lyrics, yeah, the vocals, particularly like indecipherable case in this case, you know. It's really like they're like super guttural and like again have that kind of tinny echo effect that I've been commenting on that really makes it indecipherable. Like you really do need to read the lyrics if you want to figure out what is being sung here. Or then you are a grandmaster at making out sung vocals. But yeah, again, for the kind of the indignation at society that is being conveyed by this album, I think this kind of angry warbling lyrics vocals is pretty appropriate. So like, you know, like message received. Yeah, I don't think if you're looking for like if you're looking for coherence from the vocals, then this one is not gonna win you over for sure. I don't think. But yeah, I don't know. Haven't really covered many bands of this style on this show of mine, so maybe this appeals to you. You know, this is a good dip into the genre. I'm a neophyte for sure in this scene, but yeah, I don't think I'll be listening to this many times afterwards. We'll see. It's pretty all right ultimately. Next up, Mob Rules, their 10th album, Rise of the Ruler. This German power metal outfit has been around for almost over 30 years now. They celebrated their 30th anniversary last year. So this was a little late for that, but it still comes off as a kind of throwback thing. The opening narration even refers to 30 years, so it's pretty clear. It's my first time listening to this band. I mean, if you had said Mob Rules, I would think of the Black Sabbath album. But, yeah. But about time that I took a listen to this band as well. The birds don't have a huge element in this, but you can see them there. There's a flock of some kind of, probably, vultures or condors or something flying around in the sky, you know? You know, it's nice. Nice spot. It's again, we had vultures earlier in this month's selection, but otherwise, like, not a whole lot of them. But it's nice to have them. You know, they're fit in with the desert that we are in this image perfectly. And I think they add an extra sense of, like, size that they're, you know, trying to give for this giant fortress tank thingy. Because, like, you know, it feels like the birds are flocking over it, like they're, like, some kind of, like, vanguard for this doohickey. So, you know, yeah, not a huge element, but I think they do add to the image, so I'm glad to have some vultures or condors or what have you flocking about. And apart from that, like, I mean, what can I say? It's basically a Mad Max riff. I was debating whether to say riff or rip off, like how mean I'm gonna be, but you can make that choice. But the point is, like, yes, I mean that car on the right looks rather much like the Interceptor, you know? So, I guess not hugely original ideas. Oh, except for the giant, like, oil refinery fortress tank thing in the background is pretty awesome, but of course, that one seems to be taking after, was it Mortal Engines? Was that one Peter Jackson movie? It's based on a young adult book, I know, but, like, that's the first thing I think of. But still, you know, okay, giant refinery, crazy, wacky doohickey machine is also pretty post-apocalyptic, so still not, like, crazy original stuff in that sense. However, I can't really fault this image. First of all, I do love me some good Mad Maxiness, some crazy post-apocalyptic nonsense, and this one is really nicely realized. The energy is there, everyone's just careening forwards. I like this guy posing on the front with this bolt of lightning is kind of fun, and you know the color works pretty good, and you know it's just a popping album cover. It's just fun. You know, it's crazy. It's good crazy goofiness. So yeah, good job on this image. Right. Musically, so this band is titled as a power metal band, but you know I slightly challenge that categorization. I mean, okay, well, first of all, again, as I mentioned, the album opens with a bit of a cheesy kind of sword and sorcery-ish, like, narration, something like, you know, at the start of Conan or something, explaining this story we're going to be going through. It is some kind of a, you know, concept album about the journey of this, like, temple guardian in this post-apocalyptic world, which seems to relate to their first couple albums in some sense, the Two Sons imagery and the, you know, Savage Land that they talk about, which is the name of their first album, which also features some gas-masky Mad Max dudes on the cover, you know? But I couldn't exactly follow all of those themes very well. But, yes, once the second like track started, the first proper song, like had immediately some good screaming guitar work, it became apparent that this takes as much from like new wave traditional heavy metal as it does from power metal. I think the power metal influences are that the singing is like a little bit, you know, high flying, but there's also some really impressive like galloping guitar work that'll make you think of Maiden. And good work between two guitars here, by the way. Definitely the galloping like rhythm, along with some real like squiggly wiggly face melting like guitar solos. Like really good fun work all over. You know, and like I think it's a third song, Future Loom, I believe was the one which like definitely you could have put Bruce Dickinson on the vocals, and you could have believed that it was a Maiden song the whole time. Or maybe it was Back to Savage Land, either or, anyway. But there's more than one of these songs here. But there's also a little bit of original identity. A couple of slower songs definitely then have, honestly, a little bit more German heavy metal vibes, like Accept came to mind at some points. But, you know, but there's cool, like, there's a nice mix of these, like, big, high-flying, big energy songs that then are mixed in with a little bit slower pacer ones, some are a little chonkier, and then there's just like kind of cool vibes, like the song Providence had like a really cool opening to it, to like build up to like a really epic, I think that was the most ballady one here, you know, like really cool stuff going on. There's a 1-2 punch at the end with a like nice little like quieter acoustic song, followed up by the final song being just another like big, like one last hurrah, big punchy, cool, like galloping heavy metal song. So it's got a great energy to it. Maybe it ran a little bit long by the end of it, you know, maybe, like I was like, yeah, like it's 46 minutes long with 11 songs, not counting, or sorry, including the one like opening narration. So 10 real quote-unquote songs. Probably could have like excised 1 or 2 from there, and I think it would have still been fine. But even in this form, it's pretty cool. As far as this like old school trad metal goes, this was a pretty dang good outing of that. So I was delighted to hear this band in this form. Now, you know, 30 years in their career, hearing them like this, pretty good first opening to them. I can give them a good recommend. Next up, another long-running Viking metal band from Sweden. This is Månegarm, with their 11th album now, Edsvuren. This was, you know, I happened to spot this at some point and noted the classic Norse mythology ravens there, which, you know, qualify it for this show. This was also mentioned by a friend of the show who recommended it, so like, yeah, alright, good, definitely. Thank you for the reminder. Definitely will feature this here on this month's episode as well. They mentioned that this looks like a Clyde Caldwell painting, the classic, among others, like 80s and 90s, like Dungeons and Dragons book cover painting guy. Certainly, at least conceptually, this has the energy of one of those high fantasy album covers. I feel like the lighting in Mr. Caldwell's paintings is a little bit like kind of got a more shiny, glossy vibe to it. Well, this one's a lot more flatter on the like coloring painting. So, but still, yeah, I get it. Totally has that sort of sorcery 90s energy here. Yes, of course, the ravens. There's two of them here on the top left. That's the bird connection here. This is a, massive collection of Viking mythology imagery here. So, of course, these two ravens perched on this one-eyed guy's shoulder. They're, educated guess. They're supposed to be Hugin and Munin, the raven servitors of Odin, Allfather. And presumably this guy himself is Odin, of course, having these two ravens hanging out there. Very good painting work here, sorry if I name dropped Clyde Caldwell, but of course the actual painter of this image is a long-time metal album painting guy. I got it right here. Sorry. Chris Verdi. Yes, of course. Got to name drop him. He's done a loving rendering of these ravens here. Not to mention this image in general, so the ravens, of course, adding up to the Norse mythology vibes here. You get it, it's a fun enough image. Certainly, I like the rendering. I like the idea. I like the collection of Norse stuff in it. There's Odin here at the top, and then there's this really kind of grim-looking dude in the middle with the hammer, so presumably Thor. My Norse mythology fails me on who the guy on the right could be. He appears to almost have... I can't tell if that's a decoration on his helmet, or if that's supposed to be a squirrel, in which case that would be Ratatoskr on his helmet. But I can't think of a guy who was associated with Ratatoskr, so I don't know who this guy on the right is. I'm embarrassed. Please let me know in the comments who it's supposed to be. But yeah, the formation of this freaking Viking phalanx here in the middle is pretty cool. Again, the paintwork really nice, just nicely detail-rich. This guy in the middle with his scabbard and his belt and the gear he's carrying and all sorts of details. Pretty good balance of colors here. It's going a little bit for that orange and blue, but it's going even harder on the yellows here and the blues because of this ashen grayish blue. So it's and the colors interestingly kind of all over the place. Like there's orange, yellow on the bottom right, but then on the top left. So balances all over. Kind of well done. The one thing that's funny is this ghost phalanx thing on the left there, or this ghost army. It very much looks like the same gang that's on the cover of Turisas's debut album Battle Metal. Shockingly similar to the silhouette of a gang of soldiers there. So I don't know if that's supposed to be a reference or just funny coincidence, but sure. Yeah. Cool album cover. I'll take it. Now musically, I guess, Viking metal can be a little hard to categorize, does it fall into black metal or folk metal? And I think it's very much feelable here on Edsvuren, because it switches around quite a bit with the kind of music that it plays. So it launches with I Skogsfruns Famn, which is very what I expected from this genre. It's black metal, but the vocals maybe aren't that shrieky, and it's specifically mid-tempo, kind of rolling black metal, but it's not corpse shrieking. It's more the macho vibes of Viking metal for sure, and it's this plodding, a little kind of dark, kind of hard-hitting song that plows on forward pretty hard. Very interesting. Certainly, it's a fine opening song. But then the second one, Lögrins Van, that really picks up, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're going places, because now it's got some actual pretty groovy, melodic guitar riffs, carrying a little faster now, so it's definitely leaning into Melodeath all of a sudden on that song, like, huh. And then En Blodvittneskrans is the third song, and now we're going even faster. But it's, again, now it goes back to like more like, it's also like the kind of like rhythmic pounding of black metal is also present, so I wouldn't describe it as entirely like some kind of like shredding Melodeath song either, but it's like really teetering on that edge there. So 3 songs already, like quite a wide breadth of music, you know, for a project like this. You know, it's interesting. After all that, we get hit with a nice little acoustic song. Brudens Hav is this like very mournful, like you know, we switch to a woman singer instead, and it's like a really kind of mournful, slow kind of acoustic, like, you know, vibing song for a couple minutes. And after that, you think like, okay, well now we're gonna like pick up with the metal again, but no, now we do a fast-paced acoustic song. Till Gudars Hölje is this more like upbeat hip one. It's got men singing again, and it has, you know, it's got a little bit of like a drinking song vibe to it. It's a little bit melancholic still. It's not like some kind of like Dropkick Murphy shanty or anything, but it's not, now it's like more vibing, more remembering the good times kind of energy all of a sudden. So yeah, so that's just the first 5 songs. I'd say after that point, you know, it's played its entire hand, so it kind of varies between all of these. I'd say the Melodeath influences drop a little bit for the latter half of the album, and it's more of the kind of like pounding, you know, Viking chanting black metal, and then quite a lot of like surprise, like you know, acoustic songs or just acoustic breaks in songs. Shield from Hugen is the longest song on the album at 7 minutes, and it has a little bit of everything that I just described in it, except maybe like not particularly fast jamming Melodeath vibes. So yeah, like it's interesting, and I'd say maybe that latter half, because like it's played its hand out so quick, I thought it was maybe a little not as interesting. And I don't know if the solution would have been like to cut down on all the acoustic stuff, because like, I don't know, it was pretty interesting, but like also like it felt like there really was a lot of it. Or I don't know, just bring that Melodeath energy again in a little bit more in a couple songs. But I'd say it's still a pretty impressive album, especially that opening tour is very, very fun. It's a great solid like you know, first half of our album, and second half still fine. And I think maybe someone a little bit more in the Viking scene will get like a lot out of this one, because it's such a nice, interesting like representation of the genre. So I would recommend checking this one out. I think they did a good job here on this album of theirs, Månegarm. Extreme Bird Close-Up! Yeah, this is a fun one. Next up we have Nighthawk, and their... oh, is this their 4th album? I'm gonna say it's their 4th album, called 630. So this is a Swedish, like, hard rock, classic metal band featuring a bunch of Swedish metal alumni. Maybe most notably the vocalist is Björn Strid from Soilwork, the, you know, classic Melodeath band from Sweden, who also has a rather similar, like, 70s, 80s hard rock throwback band called the Night Flight Orchestra. Him and a bunch of guys from there are on this album, kind of doing the same thing, kinda. We'll talk about it. But yeah, before we can get into anything else, the baffling thing about Robert Nighthawk, who was a blues singer, like, in the early 1900s, and had a song with this exact name, 630. So if you Google Nighthawk, or if you look up on YouTube Nighthawk 630, you're mainly gonna get hits for that song. I don't know why, because it's not covered on this album, and I don't think the music is like that, so no clue what's going on there, but alright then. Yeah, well, okay, well the bird, I won't beat around the bush here, like try to play coy. We've got this extreme close-up on some kind of raptor. It's such an extreme close-up, I can't quite tell if it's an eagle or a falcon. My guess would be it's a falcon. Maybe. I don't freaking know, but that's just gonna be my little toss there. If someone's got a good idea what bird this is supposed to be, then do let me know. I think there's a singer reflected in the eye of the falcon, now that I'm looking at it. I think that's supposed to be like, or like maybe a guy on a guitar. No, it might be actually a guitarist. But the point is, I think there's like a band member reflected in the eye of this bird. That's a fun little detail. I only noticed it just now. That's kind of fun. Yeah. I mean, not a lot to really say. It's a cool. It's really nicely framed and like really well rendered. So it's a cool photograph of this bird. And conceptually, I mean, it's in your face, which probably sells the vibes of this album, which wants to be in your face. So, you know, it works. It works. It's fine. It's cool. I dig it. So yeah, musically, it's a 80s throwback, as mentioned. And it's quite juicy. I did like quite a bit. Like, it kicks off Hard Rock Warrior with, like, reminds me a little bit, actually, of a more contemporary band, the Proto Men. Like, one of their, like, sweet guitar riff openings leading up into some nice, like, church organ jamming. It really sets the mood and is, like, a really nice song. And it kind of keeps that flavor up for most of the album. It's very heavily, like, Hammond organ tinged. And also some kind of just easy rocking guitar work. So it's just this giant, like, yeah, is it metal? A little questionable, I don't know. But like this kind of like, you know, classic metal, if you want to say, or, you know, hard rock kind of jamming. You know, it evokes like Deep Purple or like Meatloaf mainly. So, but I especially like that like organ work. I have a fondness for that. So I quite had a good time listening to it. It's not a big album either. It's like only 33 minutes long. There is not a single song on this album that is over 4 minutes. So that'll give you an idea. So it's easy listening, like it's easy to listen through. I would definitely recommend everybody like check this out, just give it one spin because it's such a small commitment and like I'd say it's like just nice easy jams. Like it took me until, I don't know, like 18 minutes in until finally a song came up which I thought like, this one's starting to be a little played out. Like it was, that one was like not even the least bit inspiring, you know, just kind of whatever, rocking at that point. And you know, at 18 minutes in, at that point, there's only a few songs left on the album, so I think that's a pretty good streak. Otherwise, it like had like some cool vibes of the aforementioned bands. A couple slower tracks maybe bring to mind like Modern Ghost, maybe a little bit, whatever. But at least like kind of like easy organ-lined rock jam music. It's quite nice. Shoutouts to the final song, of course, keeping on the theme. They have one cover there. It's Man on the Silver Mountain by Rainbow originally. So that's a fun one, of course, a throwback to this specific genre. Now Björn Strid, I should have complimented his singing more here, of course. He's got a really nice and strong and very like riffed out of the 80s kind of like powerful, soulful singing. He is quite a chameleon because you would not believe that this is the same guy who like belts out those really angry vocals on something like Figure Number 5 from Soilwork or something. So guy is mega talented. I'm not gonna say he's still up to par quite with Ronnie James Dio, so you know it's a good effort on Men on the Silver Mountain, but you know not quite jumping that titanic hurdle. But it's a fun like little tribute. Like it's basically like a little bit harder jamming, a little bit like bigger like organs jamming there along, like just a little bit more pumped up version of what's originally kind of a slow kind of rollicking kind of bouncing song. Like this one like a little bit more speed to it, so it's an interesting take. I can't hate on it. It's nice. Now yeah, I do have this really quickly before we end it, just wonder about this because I already knew about the Night Flight Orchestra, but I had not listened to a lot of them. I listened to like one song after listening to this album just to be like, why is there like a second album or like a second band from Mr. Strid seemingly doing the same concept? And I guess Night Flight Orchestra is like a little bit more, even less metal influence, like even more into just kind of like almost like disco energy on top of the like kind of Journey style arena rock that they serve up. Like I guess Nighthawk is like somewhere like a little level more jamming maybe, but ultimately like I think like if you're a big metalhead, I think they're gonna be a little hard to distinguish between those two. I don't know. Hey, look, I've talked on this very show, I've pointed out that there are guys who have multiple one-man black metal projects. So for some reason they felt the calling to make multiple one-man black metal bands, alone basically. So if that's allowed, then I guess Mr. Street is allowed to make multiple kind of similar throwback retro bands. Why not? Sure. In closing, it's interesting. I do recommend you to give it a spin. Next up, some more Melodeath. This is the Finnish melodic death / doom band Shadecrown with their 4th album, Zero. Another number title thing. Interesting trends all over the place, huh? Yeah, Shadecrown, definitely I've heard the name. Have not actually listened to them before, haven't had the opportunity yet. Having listened to this album, I think I have a gap in my listening enlightenment. Clearly, gonna have to check these guys out a little bit further because I quite like this album. But let's talk about the bird first, which is this very interestingly rendered, kind of messy oil painting, brush painting kind of bird thing here, chasing a butterfly. So 2 flying creatures. Only one of them is a bird. In fact, it's almost so abstract that you're like, is that a bird? But nah, yeah, you look at the feathers there all over the place. It's just kind of got a weird rendering on the face there, I think, that throws you off a little bit. Yeah, it's obviously it's not a bird. You can really tell what the heck that one's supposed to be, but it's really cool to see this stylized look. And in general, this cover art is pretty dang slapping because it's one of those does a lot with very little. The fiery orange glow and those little streaks there kind of giving it a fiery energy, contrasting with the dark foresty outline or vague, shapes there of those fir trees there. It just looks really, really cool. So, the coloring work is great. I like how the band logos are bending a little bit, it's really popping out, along with the big crescent. Is it an eclipse? Is it just a circle? What's going on there? I don't know. But yeah, it's simple, but really dang cool, this album cover. So it's definitely immediately promises good, and I'd say it delivers too. I was really, really delighted listening to this one first. This one is kind of exactly in my wheelhouse of the kind of Melodeath that I like. Yeah, so the band, all over it's listed as Melodeath / doom, which I guess implies that it's supposed to have kind of those melancholic vibes of something like Insomnium or Omnium Gatherum are the big names of that kind of music, and I felt that energy there. I don't know if anyone calls those 2 bands doom-oriented, but that's what it kind of makes me think of. At least that's what I felt listening to this music. It's Nordic Melodeath for sure. If you have listened to enough of that kind of music to know what I'm talking about. There's some intense, harsh vocals and some guitar work, which is at times kind of, groovy, but then also often just kind of some pretty intense riffing. But the speed is maybe a little bit slower than some Melodeath bands you might think of. And there's quite a bit of interplay with also keyboards and other, there's a cello on one song that pops in. That's interesting. So yeah, it's a little bit maybe there's some fast songs here. There's some decently fast songs here, but often also a little bit slowing it down and getting emotional and kind of moody and melancholic, but in a pretty fun way that I enjoy. And there's also times where it gets a little bit more influences of some slightly more modern sounds of just some real down-tuned and crushing guitar work. So but I think it really plays nicely with those more kind of somber kind of metal that's playing at other times. So I think it's all complements itself very well. Maybe I would have liked the would have liked the meter to point a little bit more towards, I guess, a few more like faster tracks there, because I think like a little bit like past the halfway point with the, I suppose, title track 0, which is a real good smashing song. I thought the next couple of songs were a little bit less interesting than the like interplay that have been going on up to then. A little bit more generic moody melancholy kind of heavy metal there. The last two songs I'd say were kind of that same, but then that some kind of oomph factor was there again. Like there was like suitable epicness there to like hook me back in. Definitely the final song is a great capper to this album, which just busts out like some real moody emotional stuff, and then like gets just crazier and crazier layers as it like transitions into some crushing guitar work, and it just kind of sums you up with like a nice little like burn to the end, to the finish, and you've gone through a lot of emotions on that final song. So yeah, I thought that was pretty neat, and overall this is really great. I'm going to have to, I just apologize to the band here, I'm a little bit embarrassed. Like this, if you look carefully, this album did come out towards the end of last month, and I kind of sadly overlooked it when I was putting together the July episode. So, like, by the time I saw this album came out, the July episode was basically done and was already queued up to like release in a couple days, and I didn't want to go back and edit it again. I already had to do it once because of sad events that happened in July. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'll just move it to this August, and I'll talk about it in August. But the thing is that, given how kind of bit of a slow month July was, quite honestly, this album would have handily been the best album had I actually been smart enough to wait out and talk about it and record it for last month's episode. Now we're in August, and the competition is much fiercer this month, so I cannot make the same promise, but I almost feel like, man, I should support this band on top of whatever, in case one of the other bands happens to tickle my fancy more this month. I feel like I almost need to drop Shadecrown, like a little like a token of appreciation, support them as well, because yeah, looking back on July, this album was the slapper back then. But yeah, still, whatever. Like, most important thing is that we've heard this album and it's freaking sick, and I can heartily recommend it. Next up, we have a death metal, doom metal mix-up band here, Theurgion, with their debut album, All Under Heaven. Alright, this one I almost overlooked because there's a couple of wings there, but I think they're like one of them appears to be connected to that skeleton over there on the right, so I figured they were like angel wings or something. Like they kind of didn't really like didn't reach my levels, you know, of like allowing on the show. But if you look up the top of the image, there's definitely like some passerine birds there. On the left and on the right you can see them really clearly, like tiny little, I think, sparrows or something there. I'm making that guess because there is a song on this album called Seven Sparrows, so, you know, yeah. And also, right in the top middle, there seems to be one bird being, like, I don't know, I guess attacked by a second bird, because it's, like, kind of been knocked over, and there's one on top of it. By the looks of it, you know, I think that's what's going on. Maybe. You know, the birds aren't in a huge role here, except, of course, I guess the top ones being there, like, front and center like that, but, like, they're, you know, they add to the overall, like, variety here. This is an image with, like, you know, kind of Where's Waldo-esque amount of details, you know. It's an interesting image. It's supposed to be, like, this kind of ominous mirror with a extravagant, you know, mirror frame to it with all sorts of decorations, including birds, among others. You can find, like, snakes in there, horses, sort of old-timey, like, beings. There's some roses, you know, all sorts of stuff to find there. It's, I don't know, it's a little hard to judge this. I mean, yes, ultimately I do think this is a good album cover. Is it good or great? I don't know, because it is fun to just look at it and like pick out all the little details in there, all the little like objects and images and stuff that has been hidden into that image. But it's not like anything particularly crazy going on in the image. It's just a really nice image. So yeah, it's a little hard for me to say, is it amazing or just kind of neat? But good effort altogether on the image. Musically, also I'd say good effort. That's selling it a little short. After a little instrumental opening that goes on a fair bit, like 3 minutes, like really showing off the chops there, a nice little build-up, you know, that introduces, yeah, the slow, kind of ponderous, slightly melodic, but also kind of morose, you know, slow guitar work, and surprisingly simple drum beat there to start the song off, you know. But anyway, really introducing the concept. You then get to launch into the first big song. Lavender and Silver is almost 10 minutes long. This is an album with a couple of short, you know, interlude, prelude, whatever the ending lude is, and then like several long songs that you know. And the first one, it's pretty gripping. I enjoyed it. Definitely the kind of a little sad, but also a little grand kind of energy, dark and slow, doom death. That's kind of what I like, you know, to hear this. It's you know, quite nice to hear. I do think the album is kind of front-loaded with the best stuff, so like the midpoint immediately, I feel like it just kind of turns into the more, dare I say, plodding, like the kind of doom death, the kind of doom metal that doesn't like particularly excite me very much, where it's just kind of a little bit like it's just that slow melancholy, just kind of harsh vocals growling, you know, without any kind of like pick-me-up kind of bittersweetness or majesty or something, you know, something like that. It's just more like kind of dark vibes, so it comes a little bit more washed in the middle. I'd say the final two songs, of which, again, yeah, the final song is just an instrumental capper, which has a nice, sad melody to it. But before that is like a nice the longest song on the album at 11 minutes. It definitely ends on a big note, the title track, All Under Heaven. A really good, like, again, now the emotions swell up at the end and like send the album off well. But unfortunately it's a bit of a sandwich of good stuff with some unfortunate stuff in the middle there, or not, you know, just like kind of a little bit more by the numbers, I'd say, in the middle there, you know, however you want to put it down. I'd say the same about the vocals. The harsh vocals are really nice. It's exactly that kind of low guttural, rumbling, angry vocals you'd hope for this kind of music. I'm a little bit more iffy on the clean vocals, which they do mix up here quite a bit, and I do think it's a good idea to like get a balance of the two, to like have lots of energy on this. But yeah, I don't know, the clean vocals have this like kind of weird wailing, almost kind of preaching quality to them that just kind of comes off as not as comes up a little flat as well, you know. So I wasn't as crazy about that part as I was about the nice harsh vocals. But you know, all that said, you know, a competent growly doom album. I certainly was satisfied, and I don't think there's much other like slow doom metal this month, so this is definitely, if that's your wheelhouse, I think this is a strong contender to check out this month, so please do. Next up, a long-running Swedish death metal band Unleashed with their 15th album, Fire Upon Your Lands. This band I've heard the name of, and I think I listened a little bit to their previous album, I think, but death metal, this pure old-school death metal, not really my scene. It hasn't grabbed me in the past, so I think that's why I haven't put more effort into listening to Unleashed. So maybe... Oh no, I'm looking at their discography. I think Hammer Battalion, I remember, classic album from them. Tried to listen to that too, but again, that one did not click with me, unfortunately. But maybe this newest effort will do it. Let's see. Yes, the Birds we're once again going with a Viking theme here. Unleashed is very wants to have a lot of this Viking imagery, so we got the big Thor's hammer here. And we have two ravens, of course. You can find them on top of the dead bodies at the bottom of the image here. You'll find two ravens. So again, the Norse theme going on. It's probably safe to assume that it's Hugin and Moonin. It's just a semi-safe guess to make about these two ravens. Yeah. It's not a very interesting album cover, I hate to say it. Like, it's competently done, like well painted and everything. The green juxtaposed with orange thing was... I remember this being kind of like being made fun of back in the day already for a bunch of video game and movie covers using this. Because it's a very classic, you know, opposing color shades thingy for sure. So like it does look good having these two colors next to each other, but it was kind of overused back in the day, and this being such a simple like half and half dichotomy, not that interesting. The orange glow of the presumably on fire woodlands on the sides is kind of nice, so that's a good work. And like I said, like the orange glow off the blue clouds, like good effort, like well done all, but the imagery just isn't particularly interesting to me. The birds, I guess, well, I said they're Hugin and Moonin, but they're picking at dead bodies, so I guess that's an interesting use of those two. I guess the most interesting thing is that these bodies don't really look Viking-like, like they look way more modern. Like, I don't know, my first thought was that they're like World War I soldier bodies, which is interesting. Again, that's a very Norse symbol, that hammer there in the middle and two ravens, and if you look at their past albums, there's a lot of Viking stuff going on, why it's safe to make that assumption. So I suppose that's kind of interesting, that the bodies in this, I don't know, River of the Dead or whatever this is, are, you know, something more contemporary. That's kind of food for thought, I suppose. Yeah. But not for the music itself. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I didn't particularly enjoy this album either. Like, Unleashed failed to grab me with this one as well. Maybe that means that this is par for the course and displeasing for fans, but unfortunately not for me. So it is competently done, like, you know, old school death metal, in the sense that it's, you know, just like, it's not going for crazy melodicness, but it's also not going for ridiculously massive walls of, like, you know, distorted guitars. You know, it's not brutal death. It's pretty high speed, kind of like, you know, really angry, menacing, chugging, like, you know, thrash metal, just a little bit angrier, you know, even on top, I suppose. And it's competently done, but like it just kind of chugs along with this vibe for 40 minutes, like just like this like angry vibes and with some, you know, intense singing. Another interesting point, yeah, the vocals, by the way, they're again not as harsh as some in this genre. Now again, I feel like really old school death metal, there are acts where the vocals aren't that harsh. Again, if you think of like Brutal Death or something, like we don't go into that territory. So this leans onto that, and it is interesting. Yeah, it is interesting to hear like a little bit more cleaner vocals, and you can make out the words. At the time, the like, because there's like a lot of like, there's wanting to like chant like these like real hard-hitting phrases that want to like, you know, like grab you, you know, and like kind of like, you know, like really like throw you in, like, you know, grab you in and like take you along with the like, you know, the like, you know, intensity. But the chanting with these kind of not so like, not super aggro, at least not as aggro as you'd expect vocals, it just kind of comes off as a little bit corny at times. The like, Hail to the Varangians, which has a lot of chanting of Hail to the Varangians, and like, I don't know, it just comes off goofy. And then the second to last song is Hold Your Hammers High, and the Hammers High is something that the singer repeats many times, but it just kind of, like, to me, it just kind of comes off as goofy more than like, yeah, hell yeah. I don't know. It comes off almost like a little bit of muscle rock, you know, but like amped up to like this death metal vibe. So, you know, I have a hard time recommending this one. I don't know, you know, I'm not the right guy for maybe this job here to give a good assessment, but it did not like impress me. It did not manage to like grab me as like as someone who isn't a huge like basic death metal guy. Like this didn't like do the trick on me, unfortunately. So I don't know. I think there's better stuff to listen to this month personally. So maybe you can consider, unless you're a big Unleashed guy, maybe you can consider checking something else out at this point. Next up, it's another crust band, Victim of Fire, with their album The Old Lie. This actually came recommended to me by a friend. It is kind of amusing because I had just got done, like earlier that same day, I had got done recording the portion for the Membrane, which was the other crust punk band we talked about earlier today, when I got that message and like, oh, okay, interesting, yeah, sure. It is an album that released this month and is, you know, appropriate for the show, so here we are. But yeah, fascinating confluence that, like, it's crust theme this month, in addition to all of the melodeath that we've been enjoying. Well, so it goes. Yeah, okay, so the bird is pretty easy to find in this image. We have a very World War I themed one, more blatantly than the Unleashed cover, you know, with the maybe they might be guys. And there's a big crow right here, dead center, you know, here, perching on this. I guess these are supposed to mark graves when you have a you know, gun like pressed into the earth like that. You know, and a helmet on it, you know, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, you know, appropriate. It's a carrion bird, so for this desolate, you know, devastation of war scenery, it's an appropriate bird to have there to, like, sell you on the I suppose, lack of kind of sanctity for the dead or something, I don't know, or just like, you know, like sell you that this is the only thing alive after all this devastation, whatever you will. And it's also really lovingly rendered. I do love how this grayscale image of this raven has been done. And overall, it's a pretty neat image. Like, the color work is really nice because it, like, really subtly there, like, shifts the hue as you go up in the image, you know, until the sky kind of matches the hue at the bottom, you know. And the scenery is, in general, you know, very well drawn. I really do like the decent amount of details for, you know, a kind of a barren, you know, image. And, you know, it's very well, the desolation really is sold in this image. I've got one kind of weird complaint here. And it's really nitpicky, but I'm going to complain about it anyway. That tree branch at the bottom left protruding from, like, the side of that one tree trunk there, it really is shaped like one of the rifles that you see all over the place, like, propped into the ground. So, like, I first was confused that it was a rifle that for some reason was pointing upwards, unlike all the others. Like, my really quickly looking at the image, like, huh, okay. You know, before, like, really taking the time to look around it. And obviously it's not, but that that kind of gives this image the energy of a little bit of, like, generative AI. I really do not think this one is. I mean, there's a person's signature at the bottom right there that's very eligible, and I think a big old crust punk like this would never go for a AI image. So it's just kind of a goofy choice by the artist to, like, put a tree branch that, like, you know, matches the shape of the rifles that are so prevalent in this image. It's I don't know. I don't think it was, well, if there was some kind of idea, some kind of clever juxtaposition idea, I don't think it's very well realized here. So, you know, but again, I'm really, what a tiny little thing to complain about in this image. Otherwise, it's a perfectly serviceable and nice picture. So musically, yeah, like, Membrane earlier was pretty, like, straight. Like, this is the kind of, like, really angry, like, down-tuned and kind of raging punk that kind of crust represents. This one more melding with proper metal. It's marked as death metal / crust on the Metal Archives, but I was actually hit with a more clean melodic death riff at the start that was like, oh, okay. this is really pleasant to listen to, you know, I really nice. It quickly transitions to something indeed a little bit more death metal-y and a little bit more just angry punk stuff. But like, okay, we're going for like a really 90s melodeath energy, like very early In Flames-ish vibes come through often on this album with some of the like, you know, kind of, you know, not the kind of melodeath that relies on like having like, you know, amazing keyboard accompaniment. It's just like, you know, the guitarist doing some really high-flying stuff and, you know, groovy riffs with the guitar there. You know, you get that often. In fact, you know, I almost would have called this a clean melodeath album, you know, old school melodeath leaning on death album. But, yeah, I guess the punk influences come through most strongly from the drum work that plays often here. You know, because some songs dip into like that kind of like, you know, really rollicking, fast-paced drum beat that is more emblematic of punk music, or, you know, maybe like crossover thrash than what you'd expect from melodeath. And it sounds, you know, it gives the album a couple of like two flavors, like kind of like dips between these two, you know, and it's kind of nice. I ultimately. Not something that super well sticks with me, this album, but like it's got like cool moments all throughout, so like it's, I think, certainly worth a listen. The neatest, interesting part, I think, was the second song, Apocalyptic Inclination, has like a really cool like kind of breakdown, which has I believe it's Eisenhower's speech about the military-industrial complex is like a little breakdown moment, and once you like crescendo that part, like it transitions into just like a really cool like melodeath solo. That was like a really like hard-hitting song. Yeah, it's a bit packed at the start of the album, so I don't feel like they ever hit quite as good highs on this album, but that one was like a really neat moment. Also, the ending of the album's fun. It's a cover of Iron Maiden's Aces High. It's fun because it's like a more aggro version of the original, which is already a pretty damn good song. This one, you know, I don't think they do any like crazy like, you know, mix-ups with the cover there, but they just kind of play it in their own style in a real fast and hardcore way. Sure, it's kind of fun. I mean, why the hell not? Yeah, that's kind of the vibe of the album itself, you know. Why the hell not? It's got neat, interesting moments. I recommend to listen to it if, like, all this melodeath sauciness this month has gotten you excited. This one could be something to also take a look at. Finally, we will wrap this month up with one more melodeath offering for you. Another big name here from Finland. It's Warmen and their 7th album, The Band of Brothers. So, Warmen, for the not familiar, is the side project of longtime Children of Bodom keyboardist Janne Virman, or Janne Warman, as he is better known. You know, started long ago, back during his Bodom days. And, basically this is the second album since coming back. They had a bit of a long time break there, you know, not like broken, not broken up band, but kind of on hiatus a little bit. And they came back in 23, kind of revitalized with Petri Lindroos of Edsvuren fame coming in as a, you know, permanent vocalist. I think before that, like they hadn't had like rotating vocalists or something, because it really was kind of focused on Mr. Warman's you know, keyboard work earlier. But yeah, this is now the new age, so to speak, the second offering. Well, at this point, this kind of album cover feels super played out, right? Like just in this month, I feel like I've stared at something approximating this quite a few times now. So we've got a couple of ravens here. Nothing particularly Nordic, nothing particularly Norse mythology about Warmen, so I've got no reason to believe that these are Hugin and Munin, especially because you can see a couple more ravens back there in the background on the tree on the right, so, you know. But two here at the front, perching on a pile of skulls, sure, you know, why not? They're a little bit, like, triumphant over this pile of dead people, you know, and also add that spooky raven ambiance to the image, sure. You know, I'm being a little bit too negative on this album cover, I think. First of all, the color work, I think, is more interesting than the orange/blue of that Unleashed album cover. You know, it's just orange here, but the lighting's pretty cool, really well done. You know, the pile of skull mainly in shadow, you know, little highlights of orange, kind of looks nice. And yeah, I don't know, like I do love me some skulls and skeletons and stuff, so it's giant grody pile of skulls, fun as a concept. But like, yeah, I hate to say it, but at this point, like, just random scene with spooky vibes with a couple of ravens on it is feeling a little bit like, you know, alright, come on now at this point. So, sorry, Warmen, like, you can't win them all, huh? But yeah, you know, this is probably the best for a t-shirt out of all of these. I'll give it that compliment, you know, out of all the different ravens perching on spooky battlefields shirts now, then I think this one's the best for that, but still, yeah. Oh, but musically, I'm really delighted by this. So, for whatever reason, a lot of people have been making hay about how, ever since Mr. Aleksi Laiho's sad, untimely death, 2020-something, I don't quite remember, you know, a lot of bands have been trying to, like, you know, I don't know, like, fill in with the kind of Children of Bodom style Melodeath, and Warmen keeps being called out as, like, since 2020-something, they've switched their style to be more like Children of Bodom. And I felt like, come on, like, they already sounded plenty like Bodom previously, but I guess it really was a little bit more of Mr. Warmen's keyboard work, like, being highlighted even heavier than in Bodom is the difference. Because I do have to now admit, having listened to this, there are times when they really do sound a lot like Children of Bodom on this new album. It's a little uncanny. But it is a fine album, like, yeah, there's actually quite a nice little variance how much you can have of it inside the Melodeath scene, I think happens in this album really nicely. So I wouldn't say the first song, The Titular Pen of Brothers, was super Bodom-y. Like, it's got the energy of it by virtue of, like, you know, this kind of Nordic Melodeath is gonna sound a little bit like Children of Bodom. But the second song, One More Year, that definitely sounds like the missing Children of Bodom song that just kind of got slipped in onto this Warmen album. It's got the, like, kind of really, like, screaming mid-squiggly-miggly guitar solos. It's got the, like, keyboard playing off with the, you know, guitar, and it's also got, like, these kind of, like, slower, like really down-tuned bassy parts, and, you know, it's just kind of rollicking and fast-paced, and it's, like, angry but also kind of partying, you know, it's got all that energy. But again, I don't say that as a negative. I really like that song, and there's a lot of, like, fun moments in this album. It definitely varies from that to what I would describe as, I don't know, like, it feels more like Arch Enemy at times, because it turns out that, yeah, Janne Warman's keyboard work is actually a little bit downplayed at times, even though this was his pet project to show off his keyboardiness. There's at times which is a little bit more complimentary, and it's just a little bit more jamming of, like, just screaming guitars work, double guitar playing, you know? So, those come off a little bit more Arch Enemy-ish to me, actually, you know? It kind of feels like, especially with Petri Lindroos's, like, angry vocals, they're obviously not Aleksi Laiho, but, like, they're very serviceable, harsh vocals. They kind of sound like, you know, if Arch Enemy had never done the switch to a woman singer thing, almost, kind of on this album, I feel like. But yeah, it's really good, like, back and forth with those vibes. Especially, like, towards the end, you start getting, like, the kind of mix-ups. There's a little bit more, like, in-your-face era Bodom. You have those, like, really down-tuned and bass-heavy stuff. I think March or Die was a song like that from this album that was really like that, and I enjoyed. But then, like, Untouched was, like, again, just, like, pure, like, keyboard and screaming guitar in harmony goodness. So really, really, really fun stuff. Very much enjoyed this album. Warmen has always had this habit of, like, covering, like, an 80s pop classic and doing like that as like a little cover song on one of their albums. They most famously covered Rockwell's "Somebody's Watching Me," and that was kind of their breakout song during the mid-aughts that like really brought this band to people's attention. That's the first time I heard of it. And there is a cover song on this album, as per tradition. It's not an 80s pop song per se, though. It's a Stratovarius song, "The Kiss of Judas." I'm going to have to admit I have not heard this Stratovarius song, so I couldn't compare, but I enjoyed it. I don't know, again, like I just said, I don't know what the Stratovarius song is like, but they managed to make it sound like an 80s pop song that's now being covered as a really like in-your-face Melodeath song. It's kind of uncanny. It's more slowed down and it's got like that like easy listening like keyboard work going on, but then of course it's got the Melodeath like harsh vocals and like real driving guitar, trappings on top, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, it's a ultimately I'd say it's a pretty good choice for the final song on the album to have like a goofy song like that, although I'm sure the well of like 80s pop anthems I'm sure is still quite close to the brim, so I'm sure they could have picked something like that, but sure, why not Stratovarius? I enjoyed it. So in conclusion, yeah, freaking good work. Yeah, if these guys, quote-unquote, are supposed to be the successor to Boodum, sure, this is sounding really good, this stuff that they're doing. Their last album, Here for None, was really tight. This looks to be continuing that trend. I'm really happy with Warmen's current trajectory, so I give it a recommend. And there you go. That was the August episode, which, turned out to be about, well, it's about the length of one of our longer episodes, but, not that massive in the end, I guess, after all. Haha. But still, interesting stuff this month. Surprising amount of, nice little Melodeath tracks there. Enjoyed all of that. And, surprising amount of similar album covers, as I was griping a little bit by the end there with that Warmen album cover. Boy, I don't know. I guess I was naive and I thought that owls would be the most common bird back when I started this show a year ago. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have realized that ravens are going to be way more popular. Ravens or crows. I struggle to tell the difference. So yeah. So, out of these album covers, let's talk about favorites, the favorite album cover, and favorite, album in general, musically. It's kind of interesting. I think I'm going to give justice to Shadecrown here, to be honest, when I'm thinking back to this month. Justice to Shadecrown, which I mentioned, like, their album came out, well in July, so they could have been in the running for July and would have easily swept that month. Be perfectly honest, like, I'm still enjoying them quite a bit, even now in August, when I thought, like, it would be a little bit rougher, but yeah, it's either, okay, well, forget album covers, I'd say, yeah, Shadecrown definitely wins. That kind of splotchy painting style is really fascinating looking, and just the way the cover straight up appears to glow with that orange and yellow kind of shading there is just really eye-catching. So I think it's incredibly interesting for an album cover, and there were cool album covers for sure this month, but just can't help it but think that Shadecrown one just grabs the eye really. Now, musically, I think it was going to come down to them or Warmen. And, I don't know. I think both of them are really strong contenders. I was delighted by Warmen's, intensity and sticking to kind of like, that Boodoomy sound. I thought Shadecrown had like a lot of interesting stuff going on with his music as well. So I just kind of can't help but like gravitate toward that being the one that like stuck to me the most out of this month's offerings. This month, again, a little bit in quotes, but it's happened in the past where an album that's been late at the end of a month has slipped into my my next month's preview. It just really, with how slow July was and, you know, all that, like, it just really stuck in my eye in this case with Shadecrown, you know. But yeah, I would say they're my favorite album, you know. Out of the, like, throwback albums, 'cause there was a couple here, like, you know, probably Green Lung, you know, if we wanted to count those. But I tried to, like, I made an effort to, like, only count the, like, recent releases for the, like, best music here. You know, it's more of the curiosity getting to feature the older albums. But yeah, if you wanted to, then Green Lungs is just, the psychedelic vibes are really, really cool. So that would also be a good contender. Still hard to say. Would elevate Shadecrown even above that still. I don't know. But at least, you know, assuming that Green Lungs' first debut album's now several years old, so rather not count it in this running for best album of the month, then definitely I think I'll give it to Shadecrown here. But again, you can't really go wrong with Warmen. You can't go wrong with Månegarm or Mob Rules. Or heck, even Nighthawk was fun. So, like, great choices this month. So if there was an album this month that really spoke to you, I do recommend supporting the band, if possible, by getting their music. I've tried to put links to Bandcamp. If Bandcamp isn't available, then wherever else you can maybe get the band's album, you know, the link's there in the description. But, yeah. So that's it. That's it for the August episode. September, I'm hoping to have another live concert report at the start, so we're going back to form with those. We'll see how it goes right now. No promises. But it's going to be for a really, really tight Melodeath album that released in August that unfortunately doesn't have a bird on the cover, so I can't feature it on this show. But, like, you know, just a little tease here if I can make this happen. And then, you know, September's looking all right with releases, so we should have another good selection to look into. So if you guys enjoy the show, please do tune in at the end of September, where we're going to have some more avian metal to peruse. All right? Great. But for now, have a great starting autumn. I hope it goes well for you. Yeah. Too bad about summer ending, but it's got to happen. Yeah, well. Again, I keep being so Northern Hemisphere centric. Congratulations to everybody in the Southern Hemisphere. Looking forward to a lovely, beautiful spring fawning right about now. So, yeah. But in any case, I'll catch you all in a month now. So, bye-bye!